Hey guys, welcome to this week's update on my health and lifestyle adjustment, let's call it. Welcome to Dean Kilby again. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, buddy.
We've
Pleasure.
actually come up with a little title for these talks, Chewing the Fat, which is
Chew the fat.
pretty funny.
That's all we do.
Yeah, pretty much. So, besides the synchronized drinking,
Synchronicity. Drinking the water.
drinking in stereo. Just to update on where I'm at now. How long's it been now? Just under 5 weeks on Wednesday, I think.
It was, yeah. So, no, was it? Yeah. Was it 4 weeks? No, it's 4.5 weeks.
Yeah,
Like
so
that.
5 weeks on Wednesday coming. Yeah.
It'll be 5 weeks.
Yeah. So 4.5 weeks and 12 kilos down. I'm just going to stick with the 12. I reckon it's a little bit more because I reckon I weighed more than I did in 1st of January. So, but going on the last time I weighed myself, 12 kilos down in 4.5 weeks. So
when did you step on the scales? Last? It was last Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
You were 12 kilos down last Wednesday. And it's Sunday night now.
Yeah.
So certainly more. You will have lost more.
Yeah, for sure. So, which is great, and size wise too. I think what did I measure myself last at? What 90, 98 or something, or 99 or something around my waist. Can't remember what those last measurements were that I sent you. But yeah, significant drop in measurements as well, which is what I'm more worried about. On the first call, you mentioned about having a maximum waistline of 95, I think it was. So that's where I'm more.
94.
94. Don't keep moving the bars on me.
Oh, I said 94. It's like that joke, the son goes to his dad, "Dad, can I have $5?" And the son goes, "Dad, can I have $20?" And the dad goes, $10. What do you want $5 for?
Yeah, exactly right. You've just locked up. You just locked up. Did you say anything after what do you want $5 for? Yeah.
All right, good. Thanks for pausing. Everyone, remember to take an important call, so appreciate your patience there, Trevor. It's all related to COVID. Everything's COVID. Crazy.
Everything is COVID. Might talk about that a bit later if you want to.
Yeah, may as well. It's topical. So it's what I've been losing my voice about today.
So I think we were talking about me because it's all about me.
Oh yes, there you go.
And the 4.5 weeks and 12.5 kilos and size-wise coming down. Oh, that's right. We were talking about the 95, 94 centimetre moving the goalpost. That's where we're up to. And what's been great too is that there's been a few people that see me on Facebook and watch these videos and stuff, obviously, who then message me and ask what's going on. And then they've contacted you and jumped on board to alter what's happening for them as well and get their health into check as well, which has been really cool. It's great to sort of provide that, throwing your guts up on Facebook and having a few other people go on board.
I think contextually that, I mean, it does happen naturally because you're like a walking billboard, and particularly when you put yourself out there a little bit more like you have done, becomes a little bit obvious to your network about what changes are happening, and obviously people are going to be interested. So there's an important area for many people, and in the beginning, for the most part, for most people, the context is always about themselves. And it's got to start that way. You got to do it for you.
Yeah.
But that gets old and boring really quickly. So if you can, if you're obsessing about your own body shape and your health, and you've been doing that for a long time. When I say you, I don't just mean you, Trevor.
Yeah.
I mean, whoever's listening. But the context has to become about participating in life, including the opportunity to contribute and make a difference to other people. If the transformation that you go through has a greater context or meaning where it benefits other people, it's going to benefit you. Because particularly if you put yourself on the hook, it's like, man, if I sell out on this journey, then nobody else is going to benefit from this. So, you may be that self-absorbed that, you do. And that sometimes is the case as well, because it is a challenging thing for many people. But if you can create a bigger context and be up to something in that realm, then your lost centimeters can equate to other people's lives being transformed. And that's way more satisfying than seeing a few centimeters come off your own waist, or a few kilograms come off when you look down on the scales, is seeing that the efforts that you put in for your own health make a difference to other people's lives. That's just incredibly satisfying. So, if people can create that context for themselves along the journey, like I said, not necessarily in the beginning, but at some point in the journey, you start contributing, and it's just way more satisfying. And it also takes the emphasis and the personal kind of experience of your own situation, that weight, that burden gets lifted, and you get more interested in how big a difference you can make. How many more people can you inspire just by living your own great life and actually handling what you've probably been thinking about for a really, really long time, and actually getting it handled, and it makes a difference not just to you, but to many others. So kudos to you.
It has been. Every time someone messages me or asks me and then says, I messaged Dean and I'm starting next week or whatever, I was just like, yes. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah. No, it's great. And that's the way it's got to go, because, there's just so much out there. Who knows what to believe other than those people that they already trust. So if they know and like you and trust you, and look, if you lose a truckload of weight and nobody in your life gets interested and asks you, what have you been doing? I want to do it too. Then you've got to confront that nobody actually likes you, Trevor. Nobody trusts you.
That's what I was sort of expecting, really. That's why it's been such a great surprise for me. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So on that note, I've had, there was people asking, so, what are you actually doing? We still haven't heard what you're actually doing. So do you want to run us through that?
Yeah, there's so many aspects to it. Like, I could say what exactly you're eating, but people won't hear what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right. So there are some specificities to it, but let me tell you the science of it. So obviously we want to reduce your total calorie intake. So 800 calories a day. That's what you're consuming for a big guy like you. So a lot of people think, wow, that's crazy. How do you consume 800 calories and still make it to the end of the day? Well, we do it in such a way that we turn your body into a fat burning machine. And then the remaining calories that your body needs to sustain itself, it's going to rob from your own fat stores. So that's why there's been no loss of energy for you, because you had all of that energy stored already.
If anything,
Needed to. Exactly, right? Now, when you reduce total calories, you have to sustain the correct amount of protein intake. What normally happens when people reduce their total calories, all the macronutrients reduce in the same ratios. So they end up protein malnourished, right? Now, when you go on a weight loss program like that, all the clinical studies show that 25% of the weight lost is going to be from muscle mass. So we want to make sure that you preserve that lean muscle mass. So I'm making sure that you consume an adequate amount of protein. What does that look like? You're consuming partial meal replacement programs, so protein products, shakes, protein foods, specially designed for this kind of thing, that allows you to get that quality protein intake. But the foods are designed in such a way that the calorie count is really minimized, and you just can't replicate the quality protein at that number of calories with whole foods. You just can't replicate it.
Right.
So you're eating 3 of those meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and then a snack at some time. At lunchtime, you're also combining that with a couple of cups of, when I say couple, I mean 2 cups of vegetables, and it's a volumetric thing, and you bulk that out with unlimited amounts of raw lettuce and celery, cucumber, mushroom, or radish, right? And the vegetables that you eat are select vegetables that have a low glycemic index. So no root vegetables, no carrots, no peas, no corn, no beetroot, nothing like that, no obvious starchy stuff. We want to give your body a complete and total break from all glucose toxicity for a period of time, temporary period of time. We're suspending those foods. And then at dinner time, it's pretty much the same as lunch, but you're going to eat a whole food protein, which you have been doing, whether it be 200 to 250 gram wet weight of chicken, beef, fish, whatever it is. And another 2 cups of vegetables, salad, and plenty of water. You need a minimum 2 liters of water, and then you need to supplement appropriately. And it's really critical. And these supplements are mandatory because we need to ensure that it's nutritionally complete, because there are certain categories of foods that we've suspended the consumption of. And we need to make sure that you get the nutrients that would normally come from those foods into your diet so your cells function optimally. That's pretty much it. I mean, it's when you get your head around it, there's a lot to learn about that structure, though. It looks really, really simple. There's a lot to learn about why each of those key components are in place the way that they are, what kind of vegetables to consume, more importantly, what you're not allowed to eat for a temporary period of time. So the foods that make you fat, particularly if there's high sugar, high fat, refined carbohydrates, we suspend the consumption of them. And then there's this category of foods that won't make you fat, but they'll prevent you from losing weight. And these are the complex carbohydrates, the fruits, and so forth. So anything that causes an insulin spike, because insulin is the hormone that causes the formation of triglycerides, it also causes their storage into adipose tissue, fat tissue, and it also locks that in if you have high amounts of insulin still circulating, so your body can't even access that fat as a fuel source. If you're trying to exercise it off, it'll be too hard. So, I mean, it's really, it's a very scientifically structured protocol, and it's a protocol. It's not just this forever. It's a metabolic restructuring or enzymatic restructuring protocol where we retrain your body how to burn fat all the time. And when people try and go on these ketogenic diets, first they struggle to get into ketosis. They don't even know what that means. So it's really simple to get into ketosis. It's got nothing to do with fat intake, by the way. Everyone's obsessed with 70, 75, 80% fat intake is what's going to get you into ketosis. No, what gets you into ketosis is restricting carbohydrates below 50 grams a day and creating a sufficient caloric deficit such that your body then has to turn to your fat stores. It's going to turn to fat and muscle. So if you can provide adequate amounts of really high quality protein, and the other misunderstanding out there is people think just 20 grams of protein is 20 grams of protein. It's all the same. It really isn't. There's different forms of protein. The cheaper proteins in various products can exacerbate inflammatory states in the gut. It's not easily absorbed. Sometimes it's just not palatable. It doesn't mix well in solution. Sometimes it doesn't provide the right constitution of amino acids for your body, your muscles to actually sustain the mass and stimulate synthesis of new muscle fibers. There's a lot to it than what people think. It's not just about getting a heap of protein into you. You've got to have the right kind of protein that's absorbable. So there's a fair bit of science to it. But when you look at it at face value, it seems really, really simple. And it's got to be that way, because I don't expect, every person who does the protocol to understand the nutritional biochemistry. I mean, you will over time, but not in the beginning. So
And
that's really it.
What about you see, I've seen lots of stuff during the week, because of course now we're talking about this and I'm posting this sort of stuff, and, we've been looking up different things. Straight away, I start getting flooded with all sorts of ketogenic stuff on my Facebook page and whatever. And lots of them are like, take these tablets, they've got ketones in them to help your ketosis and all that sort of stuff. Does that even work, or?
It depends for what, right? So these exogenous ketones. So what happens when you go into ketosis? If you restrict carbohydrates, you'll exhaust your own supply of carbohydrates. And that's stored in the form of glycogen in your muscles and liver. So when that gets exhausted because you're not consuming carbohydrates, your body's going to turn to your fat stores as energy. Fatty acids from the triglycerides, the fat storage molecule, undergoes what we call lipolysis, and the free fatty acids travel to your liver, and your liver converts them into ketones. And there's 3 ketones: beta hydroxybutyrate, acetone, and acetoacetate. Some of these keto supplements, they focus primarily on the beta hydroxybutyrate, and you consume that as a salt that you drink. So you mix it with water and drink it, and it does increase your serum concentrations of beta hydroxybutyrate. Yeah, so if you consume these ketone salts, it does increase your plasma levels of beta hydroxybutyrate. But what people need to understand is it's not just about the amount of ketones in your blood. Yes, they serve a purpose, and they have signaling properties and all of that, but you want to restructure your own biochemistry within your cells, so your cells are more efficient at utilizing a different energy source. It's not just about putting more of a fuel into your bloodstream. Now you've got extra fuel source.
Yeah.
So often what happens is people will drink these ketone salts while still consuming carbohydrates, and they don't create a sufficient calorie deficit.
Right.
So it's not that those salts aren't designed to cause weight loss. Some people say it helps people get into ketosis faster. I don't know. I put you into ketosis within 3 days and you had no keto flu symptoms or nothing. It was simple for you. It was no big deal, right? You didn't feel anything.
Yeah.
You're like hanging out for it. Nothing happened, right? So these ketone salts were developed by this, scientist in the US, and I think it was originally for Navy SEALs and stuff, to improve their brain function and mental processing when they're deep sea diving and stuff like that. These are conditioned athletes, so I think it serves its place in terms of performance, but it's certainly not designed to reverse metabolic syndrome, and help improve people's situations, which is 2/3 of the adult population in Australia has some degree of metabolic syndrome. At least they're overweight. A third of the population is obese. So, that's a big deal. It's not just about drinking some of these extra supplements.
And what about
learning how to eat and understand food properly?
Yeah, well, that's sort of like Band-Aid over a gaping wound. What about fat burning supplements and thermogenic type stuff? There's lots of that sort of stuff on the market as well, with they supposedly help you speed up your metabolism so you can burn fat faster and all that sort of stuff. Are they worth taking? Do they work? How do they work if they work?
There's so many of them, dude.
Oh yeah, I know.
It's because it's such an issue, and it has been for such a long time, and people obsess over it. There's going to be a multitude of solutions, and take this pill and take that supplement, and how about you just stop eating bread and cake and stop putting mayonnaise on everything, and actually learn how to understand. But look, it's no one's fault either. It's like, unless someone pulled you aside and taught you this stuff, who were you to learn from? And the foods that we consume, I don't know, maybe these recipes and this relationship to food got handed down generation after generation, and particularly as you travel and people migrate to new countries, and they settle, or they're building a population within a country. The carbohydrates are cheap. Carbohydrates can be stored for really long periods of time, and they can travel to far distances to feed a lot of people. So you got to have a certain amount of calories consumed within a population to ensure productivity to establish a country, right? So how are you going to feed all these people? Well, carbohydrates seems to be the way to go, because protein's expensive. So, and then how do you ensure people don't die from bacterial, gut infections and all this sort of food poisoning? Cook it at really high temperatures, particularly in oil. Kill everything, right? So I think it feeds us, and it makes sure we don't die from those types of gut infections and food poisoning, but then we kill it ourselves with, the obesity epidemic. Right? And then you throw on top of that lack of sleep, stress, excessive screen time, and just dissatisfaction in life, where you're bored, you're not up to anything other than your own self-importance and figuring out what you can get away with in life and how to best cover your ass. I mean, you do that for several decades and then die, and just before you die, you wonder, what the heck was that all about?
Yeah.
So what I love doing when I work with my clients is, there are areas in life where, you and everyone else wants to participate in, and you may have stopped participating the way that you're really committed to, or you want to, or maybe you did once upon a time and you pulled back now, or you're embarrassed in certain situations, or you can't wear the clothes you want to wear, or you can't participate in certain activities or sports, or, whatever it might be for people where they experience being constrained. But unfortunately, we're all so busy, we get, you get to a certain age, you're looking after kids, you're trying to pay things off, and, it's hard. So it's kind of like the frog that jumps into the cool water that's heated gently, and eventually it cooks, but you don't know that the water's you're just so used to it.
Yeah.
And then at some point you have a heart attack, and it occurs as a surprise to you, or the doctor says, listen, you're pre-diabetic. If you don't do something, you're going to be diabetic. And people think, oh, you can reverse diabetes with diet. You're an idiot. Stop thinking like that. Just don't get there in the first place, because I promise you, by the time you get there, it's going to be really hard to reverse it. And it can be done, sure. But by the time a doctor diagnoses you with type 2 diabetes, you've already lost 50% of your pancreatic beta cell function, the cells that produce the insulin.
Right.
Right. And people with diabetes, it's not a pretty life. It's not like, oh, you just have to control it with diet, or you just take a medication like metformin. In the olden days, they used to give them sulfonylureas as well, which would increase the amount of insulin that your pancreas is releasing, just to regulate your blood glucose levels. But if you've got too much insulin in your system, that's going to exacerbate the risk of developing cancers. It's going to cause more inflammation. It's going to cause faster degeneration of your brain. You'll end up with dementia at an earlier age. And then with type 2 diabetes, you lose limbs, toes, feet. You get put on dialysis because your kidneys end up shot. it's not a nice existence. You'll go blind. I mean, it's you know, and then if you have a heart attack, and the problem is when you have a heart attack these days, you don't die. They keep you alive.
Well, unless
But your quality of life is enormously compromised, and you're highly likely to end up with diabetes within the first 3 years after your first heart attack.
yeah, right.
So, you know, people need to get serious about their health.
Yeah, you don't really think of those things. You sort of just look at them as individual things. Like, you know, diabetes, I can overcome that with a diet change. And if I have a heart attack, then I'll, you know, walk 10 Ks a day and do all these sort of things. And they're not interrelated at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right. And so heart disease, stroke, dementia, 3 leading causes of death in Australia, diabetes and cancer. Cancer's up there as well as diabetes. You know, cancer's whatever, probably number 2 these days. But those 5, it's not like, oh yeah, if I'm a bit overweight, there's an increased risk of maybe getting one of those. No, it's an inevitability.
Yeah,
It's
right.
just pick one. And then it's a question of how early are you going to feel the effects of one of them in your life.
Right.
You know, you want to push that out, that degenerative aspect of your human lifespan. You want to push that out as far as possible. So the decline in your health is as late as possible. And before that, you experience the highest quality and quantity of life as you possibly can. You know, so otherwise it's just a steady decline after 55 years of age.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that's where, in reality, most people are starting to wind back from work and being able to actually do the things that they wanted to do. And now,
when you retire,
yeah,
you're not,
and then now it's all revolved around what can I do now due to my health. Yeah,
that's right.
Speaking of clothes and embarrassing situations, though, I brought back 2 or 3 shirts from Japan, and they were
When was that?
Start of the year, and
that's right.
They were sausage skins. They were the biggest sizes in Japan. And I thought, yeah, I held them up and put them to my shoulders. And, yeah, no, they'll be cool. They should be fine. And when I got them home, put them on, it was like a sausage skin. I'll put one on today. Fits me. It's like,
that's fantastic.
Everyone's
going to be hanging out to see the next nudie photos of you.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right.
I'll put 12 plus kilos in whatever it is, 4.5 weeks. You know, to a lot of people, that's just mind blowing. Like, how is that even possible? So to give you an idea, so hang on a second, let me just do some.
It's been really easy as far as just doing what you said to do. Yeah. And I haven't obsessed over it. Like, I haven't come down and, how much do I weigh this morning? And then how much do I weigh at lunchtime? And how much? I don't even bother until you say, hey, can you send me your details?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I don't want people obsessing over the performance outcomes. So there's a distinction between performance outcomes, which are the results, the numbers, the circumference measurements, the scale, all of that sort of stuff. That's your performance outcomes are distinct from your performance. Your performance is just actions and inactions, just what you do and don't do. Eat what I tell you to eat. Don't eat what I tell you not to eat. Write down everything that you stick in your face and call me every week. I mean, it's just, they're the actions and you'll get the results, right? Yeah. And then leave the numbers, the performance outcomes up to me to manage, right? So I have a very objective view of these numbers. So when people step on the scales or they see their waist circumference, they have an internal reaction or response to that. It's just a number to me. And at some point in the journey, you'll start relating to those numbers like I relate to them. It's just a very objective view. And not only the numbers, you'll start relating to them like that, you relate to yourself, your body, with that level of objectivity, right? And you're not intertwined, and it's not all about you and your willpower and all that garbage. No, so it's just you take the actions, you don't worry about the numbers. You don't count the calories or anything. I've designed it all for you.
Yeah.
All you got to do, the only thing you've got to do is make sure you eat 4 times a day and measure the cups of vegetables. That's as hard as it gets.
Yeah.
And you just do it. So let me explain how you can lose that much weight in that time frame.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can't exercise that amount of weight off, right?
I haven't done anything other than what I normally do anyway. It's not like I've upped my exercise. I've actually backed it off.
Yeah, exactly. So this here, let me give you, I've got my fat out. So that is 2.27 kilograms. It looks like 2.27 kilograms of fat.
What?
For 5 pounds. Right? That's a lot. What
the hell?
So you've lost 5 of these.
No way.
Yeah.
Well, I said my legs were skinnier.
She can see your bits now. That makes them look bigger.
I can.
So yeah, that's 2.27 kilograms of fat. So let's do the maths, right? Because if you're trying to exercise fat off, you need a maths lesson more than anything, right? You need to understand the mathematics. So that's 17,500 calories worth of energy locked up in that amount of fat tissue. If you were to burn that off with exercise, you would have to run, depending on your body size, anywhere between 5 to 7 marathons. Each marathon more than 42 kilometers long. So is
that presuming that your body's now set up to burn the fat as well?
Yeah.
And not in normal carb burning mode? Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. We're just talking calories.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so if you lost 10 kilograms, I had someone once say, oh, I've only lost 10 kilograms in their first month, right? And they were disappointed because they'd only lost 10 kilograms. And I said to them, that's 76,000 calories. To burn that off running, you'd have to run 1,260 kilometers. Sydney to Melbourne is 866 kilometers or something.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the equivalent of like 100 and it's like if you just ate the exact amount of calories that your body needs, that's like eating an extra Big Mac a week worth of calories. A Big Mac is about 540 calories for, I think it was 142 Big Macs.
Yeah, right.
Now, people don't just eat an extra Big Mac on top of their ideal number of calories per week. That might happen, and it's not just the Big Mac, it's also the liquid calories in the drink and the fries that go with it. And you go, oh, I would never eat McDonald's. You eat the equivalent amount of calories in other stuff that you consume that you're not even conscious of, and it all adds up.
Yeah.
And that's why people can gain 10 kilos in 6 months. And they're like, oh, I don't know where did it come from? I could pinpoint, I'll show you where it comes from, right? So we create such a caloric deficit. If your body needs, I don't know, a guy like you, 2,500 calories, right, a day, if you're not doing much at all, right, 2,500 calories a day, and you're only consuming 800 calories from your nutrition, you're going to steal that remaining balance from your own fat stores. And if that's every day, over the course of a week, you're going to lose this or more on average every week with no exercise.
That astounds me, the size of that. It's 2 kilos.
Yeah. So imagine if I had 5 of these. Yeah. That's what you were carrying around, dude.
No wonder my squat jumps nearly through the ceiling.
And it's dispersed. It's kind of all over
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as spot reducing any one area of your body.
Yeah.
And there's also a lot of the fat can be hidden in your internal organs. We call that visceral fat. So that's the fat in and around your liver and on your heart. And this causes a lot of damage in terms of elevating overall inflammation and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. 1 in 3 adults are at risk of developing that. There's no drug therapy available for its treatment. So non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is now the leading cause for liver transplants, the requirement for liver transplant. Everyone used to think it was like alcoholic fatty liver, or it's called steatohepatitis or hepatitis, whatever, and infections, viral infections. So now it's non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. It's just from consuming too much damn sugar, and in particular fructose, which is in everything, all your processed foods and all that sort of stuff. And your fruit juices, you think you're doing yourself a favor, you're kidding yourself, right? If you're going to consume fruit, it's going to make it really difficult to lose the weight. But if you're just juicing the fruit, pressing it or juicing it, all you're drinking is the calories.
Yeah, and that was a fad, and I only saw something on that the other day. Someone was going, "I'm going to go back on the juice fast, and just eat and just drink juice."
Yeah, and look, sometimes those kind of strategies can benefit people because it stops them from eating other processed foods and junk that they typically were eating. So if you go from a crappy diet to a juice fast, I wouldn't recommend it personally. I don't think it's the healthiest thing to do, but it gives people a break at least from the crap that they were eating. And oftentimes they do consume a lower amount of calories and they experience some benefits from that.
Yeah.
But if people are continually going on these juice fasts, then their baseline long-term health isn't stable. And it's not optimal and it's not stable. That's why they have to keep doing these fasts and detoxes. And I've never done a freaking detox in my life. I don't understand it. I stop drinking milk and eating meat pies.
But they're so good.
So then you have to detox.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Your liver does it. If you manage yourself for the long haul, your liver, if it's in good shape, it does all that you need it to do in terms of detox. You don't have to go on these other kind of detoxes. Right?
Yeah. All right, cool. Do we want to go down any COVID routes?
Oh, what do you want to talk about there?
I don't know what's happening in those worlds with the Bill Gateses and the 5Gs and the
I don't know.
and what's really happening.
I don't read all that stuff. And I don't know, at some point it just kind of became all the same. And it was like news articles were just grasping at straws for something to say, to have an opinion on something. I stopped reading all of that a long time ago. But I'll tell you what is exciting. So it's something that I'm working on, working with the team of scientists in Singapore that have recently developed a new serology test. And it's amazing. It's been validated in various clinical environments around the world by the top virology and immunological research institutes. So this test, it's a blood test, and it's a measurement of your immune system and your antibodies' ability to neutralize the SARS-CoV-2 virus. So it's not just a test out there. So when I came back from the US and I went and got tested, they did what's called a PCR test. So that's checking for the genetic material of the virus. So is the viral RNA in my throat? So they get a swab down my throat or up my nose in the nasal cavity. And then they check to see, is there the virus genome using molecular techniques? It's called reverse transcriptase PCR, polymerase chain reaction. And that's kind of like, is it there or not? Right? Now, what we know is you could test someone and it could be negative. So you might say that they don't have COVID-19, but they may have had it and your body's cleared it from your throat.
Right.
So that test wouldn't pick it up, but you may still be even asymptomatic. So you've got no symptoms. You don't have, the flu-like symptoms, and you don't have, loss of smell and taste and all these kinds of things. But you can still transmit it to other people. Right. Now, that's a cohort of people that can be very dangerous, and that's what can explode a pandemic. It always just starts with 1, 2, 10, 20 people, right? So, and it goes from there. So how can we know if they've been exposed to the virus is we check in their blood, do they have antibodies against the virus and you want to develop tests where there's specificity. So you know that these antibodies are specific to SARS-CoV-2. They're not just antibodies that from a cold virus or from another type of coronavirus, etc. So it's got to be very, very specific, and it's got to be very sensitive as well. And the sensitivity, I mean, it's really getting tricky here, but the sensitivity is dependent on the confidence of the clinician's diagnosis when you're determining sensitivity of the patient actually having COVID-19. So these existing tests can say whether or not you've got antibodies against SARS-CoV-2. Doesn't tell you whether or not you have immunoprotection.
Right.
Right. What we now have, and I'm working with the team Singapore and their global commercial partner, working with them to make it accessible here in Australia and New Zealand and other countries, particularly developing countries. We can now test to see if your antibodies do in fact, are they functional? Will they neutralize the virus? So if you do get challenged with viral infection again, your body can handle it. This is a breakthrough. This is like a game changer, and it's there's nothing else like it in the world. And it was developed by my mentor, who's been a mentor to me for 20 years. We worked together. He trained me in molecular virology at the Australian Animal Health Laboratories when we were working on Hendra virus back then. So he's gone from working on Hendra virus to Nipah virus to SARS, MERS, and now SARS-CoV-2. And he's known as an expert in not just virology and not just coronaviruses, but all the bat-borne viruses. Yeah. So amongst the virology community around the world, they call him the Batman. I love telling my kids that I was trained by the Batman. They love it. The real Batman. Yeah, so that's a game changer, and that's something that we could, we could use to make a big difference to industry as well, and in particular travel. Especially for Australia, getting people back into the country that can spend money to boost our economy. That's a big deal. So. Those meetings and conversations are all taking place, and it's pretty exciting to be a part of all of that.
Awesome.
I can't say too much, but that's just a little teaser to let you know I'm working on things at that end of the scale. How can we end this pandemic? How can we execute on a successful and safe exit strategy out of lockdown? And I'm also committed to working with individuals to better manage their health, so they have a more robust immunometabolic protection mechanism in their own bodies. So when they are challenged by these infections, their bodies can handle it and they don't experience the severe cases of the disease that often leads in endpoints that none of us want. So
it's funny you say that, because I saw something today that said, I don't know why, it was a US thing. So I don't know why we're all in lockdown when it's only dangerous to people that have background health issues or compromised immune systems, are overweight. And it's like, hang on a second, it's the majority of the country.
Yeah, it's pretty conclusive now, because we've seen, I don't know, it's something like 4 million infections throughout the world. So with those numbers, you can get some pretty good statistics, and you get some good insights as to what makes people more susceptible to the disease, and their body succumbs to its effects, and symptomology is more advanced. So if you're over 65 years of age, that's the biggest risk factor. And then if you've got a blood-borne blood cancer, or if you're male, and if you're overweight or obese, and if you've got type 2 diabetes or type 1 diabetes. So diabetes, being obese, being male, having a blood cancer, being over 65. They're the categories. And a third of the adult population is obese.
Yeah.
Half of them are male. Right? The elderly population is a huge chunk of Western society.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, well, I think we do need to handle this responsibly, and not just brush it aside. But I think it's a good opportunity for people to kind of get real about what's the environment that their body is for these pathogens.
Yeah.
And we need that breakthrough in handling our weight and immunometabolic protection, so we can have greater longevity of life.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
We might leave it there. Thanks for chewing the fat with me. And
yeah. Imagine, so if people are like, how many of these are you lugging around? No wonder you're tired all the time.
Yeah.
So we can get this off you.
Even just my breathing is way clearer.
Yeah.
Way less wheezing and just restriction in how far I can breathe out. I've noticed a lot. It's just everything's just easier now, which is great.
Yeah. Well, if you haven't got all that fat in your organs, your diaphragm can come down further. You're not just breathing the top part of your lungs, those shallow breaths, deep breaths. And so when people lose weight, their lung capacity improves. We call that VO2, increase in VO2 max.
Makes 100% sense. Cool.
All right.
Thanks, then. I'll talk to you next week.
All right, buddy. Cheers, man.